All right, so I wrote down a question just before I turned the camera on, and I don't have any notes, so I might ramble a little bit here, but I just wanted to riff on this because I think this will be of interest to a lot of you, maybe disappointment to a lot of you. I don't know. I don't mean this to be a negative thing, but I just wanted to get this conversation going because I'm interested in it. So the question is, are guitar heroes a dying breed? Are they dying off? I don't mean literally, although some of that's happening too. We just lost Eddie Van Halen. But I'm talking about, is the art of guitar a dying thing? Are we seeing growth in guitar and interest in guitar? Are we seeing a decline? And I'm only asking this because, well, this is what I do for a living, so I have a vested interest in knowing this answer. But my hunch on this is that it actually is a little bit in decline. Maybe a lot in decline. I don't know. I don't know how to process it. I'm torn because if I look at gear is way bigger than it was 5 years ago, especially 10 years ago. There's more gear than there ever was. And I think that gives us this false sense of reality. The reason for the growth in gear is because of the internet. There's distribution that there didn't used to be. Back in the 80s, you'd go into a guitar store, there was like 2 or 3 brands of amps. I don't know. This is just what I saw. I was in a small town, but there was a handful of pedal makers, guitar. There's a couple of brands. There just wasn't a lot. I mean, there was some, but it isn't anything like it is today with all the boutique amps and pedals and all of that. And it wasn't until the internet that became a reality. Now there's distribution channel that there wasn't. So I think there's this sense that it's growing. I went to the NAMM show this year in California, and it just seemed massive. I was so blown away. That's the first time I'd ever been, and I couldn't believe all the gear. And I thought, wow, is there a market for this? There must be. Not necessarily, though. NAMM is not that. NAMM is just people putting things out there, trying to market. It doesn't necessarily mean there is a market. So anyway, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. And I'm going to bring this back. The reason I said this, there's 2 reasons. I have some analytic data that I have for 10 years of doing active melody that I can look at, and I'll talk about in a minute. But the other reason is just observational. And so I've been going to guitar. I'm 47 now, and I started playing guitar when I was 15, somewhere in there, in the late 80s. And, I've been going to guitar stores since then, all the time. I go constantly, whether I need something or not. I always make an excuse. Oh, I need some strings, even though I got plenty. It's just I want to be in the environment of it. I'm eat up with it. I always have been. So I go into a guitar store and just kind of check things out. And, sometimes it's just to hang out and talk or whatever. But there's always somebody playing something. And back in the early 90s, I would go in and I would hear the new songs of the day, pop songs. We're talking Enter Sandman by Metallica and Nirvana, Stone Temple Pilots, and Pearl Jam, whatever those new songs were on the radio, you'd hear somebody playing them. So, and they were new. It was fresh. It was kind of cool. It had progressed. It used to be Led Zeppelin, and then it was whatever, and Van Halen probably, and then it went into that. And so if you fast forward to today and go into a guitar store, you're going to hear the same stuff. It hasn't changed. It hasn't grown. I mean, occasionally I'll hear somebody playing Gravity by John Mayer. There'll be this occasional sort of oddball thing, but for the most part, and I'm right on this. I mean, I'm sure you're going into guitar stores, no matter where you are in the world, and you're seeing and hearing what I'm seeing, but it's people playing I hear, even if it's a young kid playing, they're playing Black Dog by Led Zeppelin, So the guitar hero itself is definitely in decline. There's no doubt about that. There haven't been many for many years. There is Joe Bonamassa, who's, not necessarily a pop guy, but he's definitely a guitar hero. And there's some that are out there. I'm not saying that there's none, but I'm talking at that big level. Like John Mayer, he would be the example. There's not many like that. I can't, if I'm trying to rattle them off the top of my head, I have to kind of dig a little deeper to find them. And so, am I missing that? Am I not looking at that right? I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Correct me. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that they are out there and I'm just missing it. I would love to hear that. I think some of the reason for this is the fact that they actually may be out there, but music is so diluted now compared to the way it used to be. Back in the day, I'm sounding like an old man now. I am an old man, I guess. But it was like FM radio, and then you had MTV. That was about it. I mean, in terms of discovering something new, or your friend playing something, and your friend learned it from one of those two channels. So there was just a few, outlets that everything was kind of shoveled through. Now with Spotify and playlists and streaming, and it's all, there's more music than there ever was, but discovery isn't as easy as it was, I guess. Maybe that's it. I don't know. So anyway, there could be guitar heroes that would have been guitar heroes back in the day, but they're just into this diluted stream and you just don't know about them on the level that you used to. That's probably a better way to think about this. But I'm always kind of interested because you want, when you hear somebody playing something in a guitar store, they're typically playing something to kind of stand out, I think, and so they're wanting to play something popular, something that people have heard. A lot of times it's the case. But they have to resort back to the Beatles or some old riff because there's just not a lot of new ones. So that's been my observation on that. The other thing I'll just mention is analytics. I've been doing Active Melody for 10 years, so I have Google Analytics through the website. I have YouTube Analytics. I have marketing analytics when I run ads. And so I know my demographic very well. And any of you that have guitar sites will be able to probably verify what I'm about to say, but it's male, and it tends to be older male, 45 and up. I mean, that's what I see. 45 to 75, somewhere in there. That's where the audience is. It's not younger people. Now, I see something different when I look on YouTube. I do see a lot more female, at least recently. In the last year, I see a lot more female players. And I think that's really cool. That could be a trend that, something new that's coming. And I don't know. We'll have to just kind of wait that one out and see. But that's what I'm seeing in my analytics. It's older males. That's what it skews. Now, I tend to play old, like blues, roots, old country. Maybe that's some of the reason for the older group. But I have a feeling, even if I played, some kind of, death metal, I don't know, or some shredding stuff, it would probably be older males on that as well. And if you go into a guitar store, you can see what I'm talking about. Look around at the average age. Just walk in. How many young people do you see in a guitar store versus old dudes? There just tends to be an older thing. Now, I wonder with all this gear that's out there, is it the older people that's buying it? I guess they would probably have better money situation than your younger demographic. So, I mean, is all of that gear being built for this older generation? And what happens when it dies off? Does all of that industry die off too, or a big part of it? I don't know. These are just things to kind of philosophize about. Now, a lot of this is going to happen after we're all gone, so we don't have to worry too much about it. I don't think it's all of a sudden it's just going to go away. I think there will always be a place for guitar, but I think it's going to become more and more obscure. My hunch is it's going to be more like the dulcimer, or maybe not the dulcimer, but like the banjo. The banjo was super popular at the turn of the century. That was the instrument to play. And then the guitar sort of took over, especially once you could electrify it and be louder than other instruments. But anyway, if you meet a banjo player now, they're out there. But how many banjo players do you know? I mean, there's just, they're more obscure. And as time goes on, they'll become even more obscure, I think. Banjo's a hard thing to learn to play. So is guitar. And that's my last point on this, is I think part of this decline is, it's just pop music has changed. There's just less place for it. But I think people's attention spans have changed. We've eradicated boredom because of smartphones, because of social media. We're so occupied now. The moment we have a little bit of boredom, we can squelch that easily. And I think that's a real disservice we're doing to the younger generation. They don't even know. We don't know what that's going to do. And the damage that's causing. I think in the future that we'll look back and we'll know how horrific this generation that's growing up this way. And I'm putting myself in there too. Like, I'm just as addicted as any kid is to it. But when I was younger and bored, that's when I would learn to play something, the piano, the guitar. It was just to fill the space because I was just bored. The 2 video games I had, they sucked, and I've beat them 10 times. So you just would go to something else, That doesn't happen anymore. There's way too much stuff to catch your attention. So anyway, all of that's just to say, I think that it is in decline. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be a resurgence. I mean, all of this stuff is cyclical. I mean, we have seen a big spike with the game Guitar Hero, and that came out 10 years ago, however long. There was an increase in sales. And so, that can happen. And I have heard that Fender sales are up, and I think Gibson sales are up. You know, some of the big brands. So their sales are up. I just don't know who's buying. Is it younger or is it us old dudes? Anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Leave a comment and let me know what you think.